Mum died 2 years ago. She had early onset Alzheimer's. That was really tough, to find out in your late 20s that your mum's got a disease like that. There's no cure. It's a death sentence.
We're joined now by the boss, the Executive Chairman of Iceland Foods.
The business was started by my mum and dad 53 years ago. You can imagine when I was growing up as a kid, always heard stories about Iceland. But actually, I was absolutely certain I never wanted to join it. Got 1,000 shops. We employ 30,000 colleagues, 5 million customers a week. It's an amazing platform to do good stuff. Being the first retailer to remove palm oil, which was a really spicy issue.
Really feel that strongly about palm oil? Well, why have you still got 200 products at Iceland this morning to have it in there?
We announced that we were going to be palm oil free. We had an ad called Rangtang, and it was banned from TV.
Because either you're against it and everything that it does to the environment, or you don't care about it.
It got me on the thick end of the Indonesian government, load in the street.
I've got a picture right behind here. You was doing Everest for your mum.
And it's something I always knew I had to come back and do. I did it in her memory, but Everest has properly beaten me up.
Target was to raise £1 million specifically to build the world's first rare dementia support centre. It was the deadliest year on record. 17 people died, including a guy on our expedition. Things can go wrong very quickly. And I was stranded, and there were 20 people trying to get up, climbing over me, and I started to lose my vision. But the worst thing of all was that I was lying next to a dead body.
It's gonna bring me down.
Our champion today is Richard Walker, raised by the family who founded the multi-million-pound company, Iceland. You would think a step into industry would be easy, but that's far from the truth. He built his own empire in property and faced family hardships through Alzheimer's disease. Rather than play victim now, he climbed Everest for his mother, raising £2 million during the most dangerous year that mountain had ever seen. He suffered with severe death impact zones, and this story is one not to be missed. But welcome to Power of the Ordinary.
Yeah,
Cheers.
thank you.
Yeah, this is our new drink, as you're probably very aware.
Yeah.
But do you want to do a little taste test?
Yeah, let's do it.
Go on. I'll give you a cheers, but you're a bit far away.
That is good.
Yeah.
Drink of champions.
What do you think the taste is like? Because we've had a controversial opinion. And we're like, what's the actual flavour of it?
Yeah. When I first... it was almost a bit grapefruity when I first did it. It was quite quite refreshing. It's definitely kind of pretty lively, isn't it? The taste.
For me, it's lilt. I just can't.
Lilt.
I can't escape the feeling of lilt, but it's good because it's an energy drink.
Yeah, there's definitely something tropical about it. That's for sure. Yeah.
But welcome down to Power of the Ordinary. It's a
very cool set.
Our idea for this whole podcast is essentially speaking to people that do extraordinary things, but actually, what's the real story? What's the ordinary moments that give you power? And yourself, you've got quite an interesting story, and I know you kind of work for Iceland. Would you like to tell us, start there? What is it you do for Iceland?
Yeah, well, I'm exec chairman now.
Mm-hmm.
So the business was started by my mum and dad 53 years ago. And as you can imagine, when I was growing up as a kid, always heard stories about Iceland and this swashbuckling entrepreneurial ride, around the dining room table, listening about how they were growing the business. Yeah. But actually, I was absolutely certain I never wanted to join it. It was the last thing I wanted to do, to try and emulate my dad, who's this legendary retailer who's built this phenomenal company from scratch. So, I sort of ploughed my own furrow, and I moved to London. I qualified as a chartered surveyor, and I worked there for a couple of years. And then I set up my own business in Poland, which was like an investment company out there, right. And lived and worked out there full time. And then eventually, I think I was avoiding my destiny of selling frozen peas for a living, and I moved back home. And it wasn't until I was in my early 30s I said to my dad, I'm willing to kind of move on from property, and I want to give Iceland a go. And in his Yorkshire accent, he said, "Don't bother, collect rents. It's much easier." And I think maybe that was a bit of reverse psychology. But he's right, retail is a tough game. And it's not been a straightforward journey, because everyone knows you're the boss's son and presumes you've been given a leg up, which obviously I have. But I was determined to do it the right way. And I started off in Iceland's in London.
Right.
And I had this weird dual life where I'd go into my property business on a Monday in Mayfair and wear a suit and tie and look very smart. And then Tuesdays to Saturdays, I'd put on a name badge and a clip-on tie, and I'd go to Iceland in Greenford and stack shelves.
So it was the complete polar opposite.
Yeah, it was
He's doing two
total like
things.
juxtaposition, total opposite. But it was brilliant. It was like the best year of my life. Made friends for life. It was fantastic, and also to learn about the business from the bottom up was really useful and put me in good stead. And
Credit
then
for your paps doing that as well, not bringing you in at the top. It's like, no, stack shelves.
yeah, exactly, yeah. And it was the right way to do it, because I think respect is earned no matter who you are. And then various roles, kind of out in shops and eventually head office, and I've run the international team and one of our businesses called the Food Warehouse, and now as executive chairman. So I'm not quite sure what my job is now. I suppose it's like chief cheerleader and looking after sort of people and customers and the proposition, really.
The thing is, though, that was like a real good whistle-stop tour of like that kind of growth. But there must be so much more to those moments, like being a child whilst your parents are setting up what Iceland is today.
Yeah.
Like, that's got to be something like that.
Yeah.
What was that like as a child with your parents?
Yeah.
That?
I mean, as with everyone, like your mum and dad are just your mum and dad, you know, so there was that. But obviously I was aware of this thing and it was all consuming. You know, it's dad's an extraordinary person because it's not a normal person who starts and creates and develops and actually still owns and is involved in a business as large as Iceland. So it was very much like, you know, the two of them. Mum thought of the name. Right. I think Dad wanted to call it Penguin, which would have been a disaster. But yeah, Mum thought of the name Iceland, and she worked on the checkout, and Dad worked the stock, and he basically borrowed 30 quid from his mum. Okay. This was in 1970, and 30 quid, like proper working class background, a lot of money in those days. He paid it back. Right. And that was to pay for the first month's rent, because everything else was on credit from the stock and the refrigeration, everything else. But they opened it, this tiny little shop, not much bigger than this room, and that was in Oswestry in North Shropshire. And they calculated all of the sales at the end of the first week, deducted all the costs, and they made a profit. And every week since, for 53 years, the business has turned a profit.
So from first week openings, always been a profit. Yeah. Never balancing out. That's an impressive
But it's not been a straight line to success. And, you know, we've very much ridden the journey with mum and dad. And you know, Dad was kicked out of the business about 20 years ago. It's been a public business. It's been a private business. Yeah. He's owned all of it. He's owned none of it. So it's not been like an easy ride or a straight line to success. There's been many, many twists and turns. But what's amazing now is, together with the Dallywell family, like, you know, we're back in control. Yeah. It's a private family business. Got 1,000 shops across the UK. We employ 30,000 colleagues, 5 million customers a week. It's an amazing platform to do good stuff and, you know, to get involved in exciting things. Well, like Furosity.
Hey, I just wanted to take a moment and say thank you for listening and give one of you loyal listeners a chance to win a year-long supply of Furosity to show appreciation for all your support. To enter, all you need to do is subscribe to our podcast on your favourite streaming platform and share your favourite episode on social media. But don't forget to tag us so we can see it. We really do appreciate you, and thank you for listening. I did read that you climbed. I've got a picture right behind here.
There you go. Yeah. Nice.
You was doing Everest.
Yeah.
Which is no
a couple of
small
months
feat.
ago.
And I heard you was doing that for your mum.
Yeah.
And that sounds like I don't want to dive into it, but like a horrible scenario to go through.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, it was. So Mum died 2 years ago of Alzheimer's, and she was only, I forget now, she was like early 70s, but she was diagnosed when she was in her early 60s. Right. So she had early onset Alzheimer's. And that was really tough, you know, to find out in your late 20s that your mum's got a disease like that, you know, there's no cure, it's a death sentence. And the long kind of slow progression is horrendous. And I think, you know, it's really important to talk honestly about what dementia is and the impacts, because a lot of charities will show like pictures of old couples arm in arm skipping through a field, and you can live with dementia and have a quality of life. Well, it's shit, you can't, especially towards the end. So we've, as a family and actually as a business, always been very, very motivated to try and fund as much as we can into dementia research.
Yeah.
So in 2011, just after Mum was diagnosed, Dad and I went off to Everest, to the north side, as you do, with the target of getting halfway up to the North Col, which is at 7,000 metres. And the target was to raise £1 million for Alzheimer's Research UK. And we did. And that was fantastic. But I came home, ready to come home. I didn't really know anything about climbing big expeditions. We were kind of exactly the sort of people you read about that have no business being on the mountain, So we came back alive, if a little bit sort of tired and hungry. Right. But it's always kind of been there that, I probably could have summited and whatever. And I've sort of quietly built up my climbing CV over the years since. And I've done the Matterhorn and first ascents in Kyrgyzstan of unclimbed mountains, and, the Old Man of Hoy, some really cool stuff. And it felt like the right time to go back to Everest, especially now Mum has died, to kind of do it in her honour, to finish the circle and to raise another £1 million, this time specifically to build the world's first rare dementia support centre.
Okay.
And like I said, Mum had a rare form of dementia. So yeah, I was very much kind of galvanised and motivated to do that. And this time I went on the south side in Nepal, as opposed to 12 years ago, which was the north side in Tibet. And we did like a super kind of fast one-on-one lightweight ascent with a guy called Kenton Cool, who has been to the mountain.
He's done it a lot of times, right?
Loads of times. Yeah, he's got the record for a non-Nepali. He's summited 17 times now. So he's the guy to go with. And we did it. And it was really tough. And there's very good bits to it, very horrendous bits to it. But, the main thing is came back with all my fingers and toes, and we'd raised over £1 million now for this centre.
When you say there was ups and downs to that trip, can you give us like a genuinely because there's very few people that's climbed Everest.
Yeah.
That's not a common thing.
Yeah.
What was your real life account, good and bad?
Yeah. I mean, and I can share the photos and maybe put it up on the notes, but some of the scenery and what you see is absolutely stunning, breathtaking, and those images are just seared in my memory forever. Standing literally on top of the world,
the highest point
after a month of climbing and going through a lot of suffering, but after 6 months of training, and actually after 12 years in the making, since I was last there, that was surreal and incredible to kind of look down and see the curvature of the earth, and the shadow of Everest kind of propelled hundreds of miles over the horizon as the sun's rising behind you. I mean, it's just mind-bending.
Once in a lifetime.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
100%. Yeah, definitely. I'm not going back. And the camaraderie, the Sherpa that are the real superstars and heroes on the mountain, and obviously getting very close to Kenton and experience the whole Nepalese and Himalayan culture is amazing. But yeah, there's very bad sides to it. I mean, it was the deadliest year on record this year. 17 people died, including a guy on our expedition that we were associated with. Yeah. So there is a total madness to it. And you're not doing anything new. You're not doing anything that hasn't been done before. It's just objectively very dangerous because it's so high. And, things can go wrong very quickly. And you read about the rubbish on Everest. I didn't see any except at high camp. Okay. And there was a lot of rubbish there, and it wasn't nice to see. You also read about the queues on Everest. Now, Everest obviously is massive, and it can take the queues. Yeah. I think there were 400 permits issued this year for climbers. About half of those turned back because it was so cold. But that's not many people on a mountain the size of Everest. But the problem is you're all going one route up a fixed line. Okay. And people are very spread out. But there are bottlenecks. And I was stranded just off the summit when we'd summited, coming back down. And there were 20 people trying to get up, climbing over me. And, I couldn't get down till they came up. So I was just laying down, waiting for over an hour until they passed me. And I started to lose my vision because I had hemorrhages in my eyes, which was because of the pressure and being up there too long. But the worst thing of all was that I was lying next to a dead body at the time. So, you know, there are some things that are really ugly and defy logic about that climb.
What was going through your mind at that point? Did you think you was going to join that person? Because I can't imagine losing my eyesight.
That just really drained me, because up until that point, you know, we were smashing it and we were always the fastest. We were kind of unclipping off the fixed ropes and overtaking people and going fast. We were always early into camp, always felt strong. Altitude sick. I think I took 1 Panadol for the whole trip.
So
I was eating well, you know, regulating everything well. But on the way down, everything suddenly went wrong, and this issue with my eyes, lost about 60% of my vision, and everything was quite milky. And I was really panicking because I was at 8,800 meters, and
with, I imagine, no help.
Yeah, no, I mean you can't. You can't be carried off. It's 1.5 kilometers above the height helicopters can fly at. You know, you're on your own. And I knew I had to get down, but we'd been climbing for 12 hours straight through the night to summit. Our water had frozen because it was so cold, so we were dehydrated. And then I knew I still had another 6-7 hours to go to get back to high camp.
And you've got 40% vision left.
And I've got 40% vision less. And that high camp is still in the death zone at 8,000 meters. So you're not at safety there. So I started to really worry, obviously. But, you know, it's amazing if you dig deep, what you can do and you can get through it. But it was quite traumatic at the time, to be fair.
What was the mindset that did get you through? Like in that moment where you lay there? Because I can't imagine what that's going to be like. I don't think anyone can unless you've climbed Everest.
Yeah.
That moment of feeling truly, well, it sounds like alone.
Yeah. Well, I was with Kenton. He really was the reason that kind of I got through it, and you know he kind of was talking to me, and it was difficult not seeing, because when 80% of accidents happen on the way down.
Do they?
And you know there's a reason for that, because you're emotionally elated but exhausted. You know you're so tired because you've been going for so long, so you're not concentrating as much. But I had this added issue on top of that. So I kept kind of tripping and couldn't really see, but he was great in terms of talking me down and talking me through it. But the big thing that kept me going throughout really was, you know, the charity and the fundraising and all my Iceland colleagues who were supporting me and backing me.
Yeah.
That meant the world, and it really kind of got me through the tough bits, because 90% of it is grim. You know, you're scared, you're homesick, you're anxious, and you're thinking, what the hell am I doing here? You know?
You would be thinking those things. Like, why did I decide to do this?
Yeah, exactly.
I want to be at home on my sofa and be back with my family, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's mad. But, you know, there's retrospectively, obviously, you look back and it's the best thing ever. And, you know, so glad I did it.
When you said as well before that things went, I did pick it up, things go wrong really quickly. And there was someone on your expedition that didn't make that. What was that like? Because I imagine did they become a friend and then all of a sudden? Yeah,
I do a talk on Everest, and I show a picture of him in terms of the kind of key lessons I learned. And, you know, one of them is the obvious point that life is very, very short. So, Peter was his name, and he was the first guy to welcome me to base camp. Really super nice guy. He told me all about his work back home in Canada as a medic, and also his plans to climb with his son when he got back home as well. He had this big climbing trip planned, and we'd sit next to each other most meal times in the mess tent. Like I said, it was one-on-one with Kenton, but we were attached to this larger expedition, which is how I met Peter, and we were using their base camp facilities and their Sherpa support. So we'd keep crossing paths and share base camp together and stuff. But yeah, he was about a week behind us, and I'd actually got back home by the time I got news that it had happened. But he got to high camp 4, 8,000 meters, and had a pulmonary edema, which, you know, is just, it can happen because of the altitude, and they couldn't get him down quickly enough.
What is?
It is to do with your lungs.
Okay.
And, you know, the reason it's called the death zone is your body is dying above 8,000 meters
Consistently.
Yeah. So, you know, your body is just shutting down because it's trying to conserve what little oxygen there is.
Right.
You can't eat, you can't sleep, and humans aren't supposed to survive at those levels.
So the entire time, essentially, when you get to the death zone, your body is more surviving.
Yes.
It's fighting the death.
Yeah, and which is why you've got to, you can't spend long there. And actually, when I came back down after the issue with my eyes and kind of came into Camp 4, because I couldn't see, there was what we were supposed to do was kind of have a cup of tea and rest for a few hours and then get the hell down, to the next camp below, which would have been another 4 or 5 hours. There was just no chance. I couldn't see, so I wasn't going to climb the Lhotse face, descend the Lhotse face like a vertical kilometre ice wall. So we had to spend a second night at Camp 4 in the death zone, which wasn't part of the plan. But yeah, the thing with Peter, I mean, life is very short, and whatever you do, make sure it's what you want to do, because your time is limited.
Yeah. Do you still think about Peter?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, I do actually. I've got a photo of him, and yeah. But I think, I think the whole expedition it taught me a few interesting things. Not only that, but just the power of kind of perseverance and resilience. Another interesting story is when you have a trek to base camp to acclimatise. It takes about a week.
Yeah.
So you start at 3,500 meters, you trek over a week through the Khumbu Valley, and it's beautiful. It's like rhododendrons and stunning scenery, and eventually you get to base camp, which is really where you start climbing properly. But on that trek, we passed the foot of a mountain called Ama Dablam, which is an amazing looking thing. It's like the Matterhorn of the Himalaya, and it's super high and rugged and jagged. I remember like looking way up and marveling because it just seems so impossibly high. And then I just had this horrendous sinking feeling when I realized like it was 2 kilometers lower than Everest. And I had to get my ass up to the top of the world, to the top of Everest and back down. No one was going to carry me. I couldn't drive or heli or anything. And it was like, I can't do it. And in that moment, it just seemed completely hopeless. But it is amazing what you can achieve if you just keep going. And how you climb Everest is by putting one foot in the front of the other.
I guess that's the kind of like perfect, I don't know what the word is, methodology, or when you compare two things together.
Yeah.
It's like, that is the journey towards a goal. Like that mountain, you might not see it. When you set up that company, when you move countries or whatever it was, that's the goal. But you can't ever look at that destination. All you've got to do is the steps.
Yeah, exactly. Just do the steps and put one foot in front of the other. And I'll never forget, it was a bitterly cold year in terms, and that's why it was so deadly. So we only had 5-10 minutes on the summit. It was close to -50 with the wind chill. But one thing I do, and I don't remember much because it was all a blur and very weird and surreal, but one thing I do remember when I was on the summit, I looked down and I saw this tiny speck like miles beneath me, and it was the summit of Ama Dablam.
And you're like, well, look where I've came.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And how long did it take to summit?
So you can't go straight up because your body's conk out. So you have to do what's known as rotations. You go up, you might sleep, and then you go down. And the whole idea is to acclimatize. And traditionally, you might do 4 or 5 of these rotations. You'd climb up and down, and then you go a bit higher than before, and then back down again, then a bit higher again. So I was chatting to Bear Grylls when he did it. It took 3 months, and he did 5 rotations. That's traditionally how you did it. I mean, we did it in less than a month, and we only did 1 rotation. But once we were acclimatized and we'd done that rotation, from base camp to the summit, which is only halfway, and then back to base camp, it took a week.
I'm pausing this podcast to bring to you Power Protein. Each bar has 20 grams of protein and 1.9 grams of sugar, and they come in 2 delicious tastes, caramel and chocolate fudge brownie. But I'm going to let the guests tell you how they taste. You can buy them on ferocity.co.uk. Now, back to the podcast. And so you was basically over there for an entire month, just for that climb, for your mum, raising. So total,
we're just over. I think it's about 1,060,000 now. So
that's insane.
It's great.
And then also,
if anyone wants to donate, it's Cool Walk at Everest. So you can Google that, and we've got a Just Giving page.
I'll definitely jump on that. In terms of your mum. Obviously, I think everyone's mum tends to be such a big part of their life.
Yeah.
What was she like?
She was great. And actually the thing I was worried about when she died is that your strongest memories are the most recent ones. And actually the last couple of years were shit. But now a few years have passed, like those memories fade, and actually the stronger memories are now of when I was younger and before she got ill. And she was just very kind, you know, and just very generous and gentle, quite shy. And yeah, you know, I think some of those attributes I hope I've got, but also try and bring into business as well.
Yeah.
I think like kindness is a real power and can certainly go a long way. And if you look at the Iceland family, 30,000 colleagues, you know, I think being there for each other, looking out for each other, trying to do the best that you can, you know, we'll never be the best payers in the world or whatever, but, you know, we can be there for each other, and we do amazing things every day for our consumers and our colleagues. I think that's really important in business.
Yeah. How was it in terms of the family when you found that out? As in, like, was your mum very aware when she found out she'd had that, or was it? What was that journey like, and how was the family? I can imagine it's a similar thing myself. My mum's got alcohol-induced dementia,
Right.
so she was an alcoholic.
Sorry to hear that. Yeah.
It is what it is, and it's a massive, horrible factor of life. But I truly believe that as a disease is one of the worst diseases that exist in mankind, because that person's alive,
Yeah.
but you're slowly seeing them fade away. And for me, it'd just be really interesting to hear, because there's going to be many people that are listening to this that have that right now that's going on.
Yeah. And sorry to if I can ask you a question, did your mum get through the alcoholism?
Yes and no. My mum was a massive alcoholic, which introduces being compulsive liar, bipolar, like type energy, and it comes from that need and that addiction. And she gave up on life. She tried to take her life.
Right.
And then she completely gave up. And then she ended up going to an intensive care unit because she hadn't eaten, she hadn't drank, and she completely passed out. And I found her on a couch. When she came around, she was alive, but her brain was rewired.
Right.
When you said, did she ever get through alcoholism? The number one and best thing that could have happened, which was really weird, silver lining every single cloud, was the Alzheimer's cured the alcoholism.
Right. Okay.
Because she forgot she was addicted to alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah.
And those younger memories of herself were like just coming back through. And she has improved. She's in a care home. She went through nursing homes, and she has massively improved over time, which is amazing to see. And now I go to see her. She's happy.
Yeah.
She loves me, and I've kind of got an essence of my mum back.
Yeah.
It's not what any kid wants. But when you're speaking about dementia and these types of things, I think it's really important to talk about, because it's not a disease that's talked about often, and it does happen to people that are younger than it should. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you know, what a journey with your mum. And I think, you know, alcoholism affects a lot of families, and it's a disease, you know, it's a horrible disease, like you said, with many kind of consequences. And with dementia, you do lose them twice, you know, when the diagnosis hits and obviously when they eventually die. But people think it's like just getting more and more forgetful, but actually it's a hollowing out of your sense of self and your personality. I mean, you know, ironically, it's nice in a way, like you said, a silver lining to hear about your mum, and, you know, the fact she forgot she was an alcoholic, and you've got a bit of her back. And I think, you know, you cling on to those moments, and it's always important. And there's so much we don't know about the brain. Yeah. And I remember with mum, you know, I thought she was completely gone and just, you know, just kind of alive, but that was it. But, you know, I'd play some like Welsh music that she'd like because she was Welsh, and she started to cry. And, you know, there were definitely kind of signs of personality and emotion that you just didn't even know were there. Yeah. It's really important to kind of stay with that. But as a family, you know, you asked what was it like, and I mean, it's, you know, it's devastating and it's tough, but in a weird way, it kind of galvanizes you together. You know, we focused on mum, gave her the best care we could. It was a very long course, you know, it lasted kind of over 10 years. And eventually she passed away. But I think raising awareness on dementia is really important as well, because it'll be the number one killer in the UK, you know, and yet we're at war with cancer. but dementia attracts 1/7 of the funding that cancer research does.
Yeah.
And the knock-on consequences to families, as we know, but to the economy is massive.
Yeah.
And that's why it's really important that we find a cure for this.
And I mean, you've done absolutely incredible things already in towards doing that. £2 million in total. Oh, the first trip with your dad, and then the one that you've just done with not in record time, but for an average person. But I couldn't imagine doing that. You could say, if someone said to me, "I'm going to do it in 2 sites," like it should take 2 months.
Yeah,
I'm going to do it in a month. I'm like, no, thank you. Yeah. But honestly, I've really enjoyed this chat. Like,
it's been pretty wide ranging, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been very dimensional. You've gone from like a career perspective, from like this, I really want to show my dad, build my own thing. Then you fall into the family business. You do something for your family in terms of like climbing Everest and achieving millions of pounds for an incredible cause. Been so fascinating listening to that story, and I'm sure there is much more to tell as well. But I think
in round 2.
Yeah, round 2, season 2. But before we do run away,
yes,
we've got 2 like little things to play and do.
Oh,
so
okay.
I made that sound a bit odd, but the first one is some of these new products.
Yes.
So yeah, we've had quite a lot. The taste test is going, so we're just trying to mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, fine.
So we're going to give you.
Yeah, okay.
There you go. Oh god, that's hard to reach. There we go. Right. So yeah, which bar does this taste like? That's what we're going to do. I'll give you the caramel one, but what does it compare to? Ooh, we've gone.
I thought it might want them.
Yeah.
Well, it's a much better version of a grenade bar, I'll tell you that, first and foremost. Kind of, it's like a caramel bar, but it's quite nutty as well.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
We'll do the chocolate fudge one.
Yeah,
1 sec. The brownie. Here we go.
No need for dinner now.
There we are.
Yeah, that's just classic, like brownie chocolate bar, isn't it?
Brownie chocolate bar. Does the job.
Does the job.
The
Brownie is just brownie. It tastes really good.
And you can't really go wrong with a brownie.
Solid. Yeah. I'm going to take that away with me.
Right, well, before you do run away, I'll see a boom mic pop in here in a minute. But there it is. We've got a little boom mic. We're going to go over to our pack-a-punch machine. Come on with us.
Oh, right, okay. I should have been in training for this.
Yeah. The idea here is the punch is relative to a goal. So we're going to give you
a goal?
Yeah, we're going to get one of these. Get our pen.
Do I get a practice shot?
Well, we'll write one of these, then we'll give you some fuel. We'll give you some energy.
We'll give you
some champion drink, and then you can have a second shot.
Okay, perfect.
But ideally, we need you to write a goal down. What's your next goal in life?
Do you know what? It's just one of the other lessons I learned from Everest. I climbed to the top of the world in search of something new, and I didn't find anything. Okay. And that was my big epiphany. I kind of realised what I've already got is amazing. Yeah. Home, all the support network I've got, family, but Iceland as well is incredible. And, we're doing incredible things like we've just been talking about. And kind of my big thing actually is coming back and just wanting to lean into Iceland and, getting more involved in the business basically than ever.
That's pretty good. That's a good goal to have. Yeah. So I don't know how you'd write that down.
I don't know, yeah. I'll just put Iceland. There you go.
There we go. Right, there it is. Looks like you're going to go to Iceland.
Yeah, that's true actually. Yeah, I do want to go to Reykjavik. Good night out apparently.
So I'll press it on there.
Okay.
And
no, and I have to smash it.
You're going to have to smash it.
Okay.
Smash Iceland.
God. So how does it...
The technique we found best is like a straight fist, but you kind of want to go down on it.
Go down, yeah. I probably want to give up. Right, okay, ready? Ready?
Felt good. It's climbing. It's rising. Ooh.
Oh, that's... Yeah.
6. What was that? 6, 6, 7? 6, 6, 7. What we'll do? 1 second. Let's go get you.
That's rubbish.
Let's go get you some fuel. Have a sip.
Okay, yeah.
Drink.
Okay. It's going to annoy me if I don't. The competitiveness comes out.
Let's see. Do 6, 6, 7 to beat.
Okay, ready?
Yeah. I think it might do it. I mean, you've smashed it. We're in the 700s.
Come on, go!
714. 714. That's a respectable score.
Okay.
We'll. Do you want to write it down?
Yeah.
You can put it on the board. Whack it on. Get it on there. There you are. That was Power of the Ordinary. Guys, please like and subscribe, and thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thanks, man. It's
Really
been a pleasure.
appreciate it.
Really enjoyed
Likewise. Thank you for watching this podcast. And if you're enjoying these episodes, let us know by subscribing to whichever channel you're listening through. It makes a huge difference, which allows us to grow and bring you better content.